Hey everyone, my name is Drake and welcome to another video. I wanted to start by saying that I was genuinely shocked by the response on my first video. Uh, Given that it's the first video on my channel, I kind of just uploaded it and I hate to say it, but I assumed that I would mostly be talking to myself. And for the first few hours it was uploaded, it didn't get any views, so I was like, that's okay. And then I kind of got looking at other things, but I'm genuinely really happy that it got over 100 views and that my channel has 8 subscribers. That's really huge to me, and so thank you guys. And I'm really glad that you liked it, and I hope you'll like this video and future videos. I wanted to talk today, in general, about Twilight. And so first I want to say that, though I'm not setting out to spoil anything particularly, if you haven't read the books, I would say spoiler warning. I don't have a script for this video, and so I might just kind of say something that's, very spoilery. So yeah, fair warning in advance. Now, in my last video, my first video, my only video, I talked about how I picked up Midnight Sun and how I was reading that. Unfortunately, because of the demands of school right now and midterms, I literally have a midterm tomorrow. I've been really busy, and I'm kind of surprised that it's October 16th now. Where is my clock? Yes, it is. It's October 16th now. Time really flies, and this always happens around fall, but yeah, so anyways, I wanted to talk about Twilight, even though I haven't actually done a ton of reading into Midnight Sun yet, unfortunately. But, like I've said, I have actually read the entire series, and I figured it'd be fun to talk about some of the weird and wacky things in Twilight, and kind of go more into what I was talking about in the first video, where I said that some things when you read it as an adult are just a little, funny. And I'll probably go more into this in the future. But anyways, so here we go. The main thing is, if I could put it into very few words, even 2 words, is power imbalance. And I know I'm not the only one. This is probably beat into the mud as far as a topic to talk about, but as a kid, when I watched the movie, the first movie in the theater, which got me into the series, to me, a 17-year-old was already basically an adult. I don't know, when you're a kid, someone in high school, when you're not in high school, just seems so grown up and mature. And then, of course, as you grow, you realize at every stage that the people just a little bit younger than you seem very young. And now as a full-grown adult who's about to be 28 in a month, which is crazy. And I don't mean this to be diminutive to high schoolers. I think you'll have this experience too, but even a grade 12 high schooler just seems like a little wee one to me, and you can just see so clearly how young they are. But anyways, as a kid, didn't really notice it. Edward, even though he's it's this bizarre thing, it's really quite a mind twister, because Edward's simultaneously 17, 100, and then, well, yeah, he's mentally very old and a vampire. His body, as Stephanie very much reminds you throughout the series, is that of a 17-year-old. And Bella at the start is a minor. So, and by the way, when I'm referring to Bella, I'll probably just switch between referring to her as a girl and a woman. I'm not trying to be diminutive in using girl. It's just that at the start she is a girl, a minor. So it never registered with me as a kid how much of a vulnerable position Bella is in. And you really have to lean into, and I'm glad that it's focused on so much in the story, the fact that Edward, who by the way I really like as a character, and I'm Team Edward confidently, the fact that Edward has this draw to her that he can't really control, and if you really keep that centered, it does help a lot with the power imbalance issue and making him less or not creepy seeming, because yeah, he's physically dominant, obviously, over any non-vampire, including Bella. He's mentally very mature and old and wise. And Bella is very clearly not in the start of the book. She's a girl. She's learning about the world. She's had not the most adventurous life as well. She's quite a introverted girl, and so she, just I think most kids these days, she matured slower than, say, someone would have 100 years ago, which is another thing. Even if Edward's mental state hadn't advanced whatsoever in the near century that he was a vampire, he would still be more mature than Bella or like most people of his bodily age are now. Society was obviously very different back in the day. The demands on young people were a lot higher as far as the expectations around growing up. Uh, I can't really pin the age that people would have considered adult, but I feel like it tended to like be around basically onset of puberty. There was all of a sudden just like this view that like, okay, you're grown up, it's time to stop acting like a child. And it's not that that means that kids back then had different brains or were literally more developed, but there was just a different way they were, different social expectation, which would change things. You know, it would change their level of worldly knowledge and the way they present themselves. And you kind of see that. I mean, if you look at old photos of younger people from way back, part of it is that they had no skincare routines and a lot of them were smoking like chimneys, but overall they look a lot older than their age, you know. Yeah, so that's a factor. And then basically, yeah, that's just to come back to it, that's something that when I reread the books as an adult just kind of consistently hit me, which is just if I was Charlie and I learned that this person was a century almost old mentally, I think I'd have some issues with that. And it's something that you have to almost suspend your disbelief on. And you have to, again, really lean into the fact that Edward is not a human. And so he fundamentally works differently. And the fact that he's not a human in general is kind of key if you think about it. It's like, yes, there's an age gap, but there's also a species gap. So this isn't a relationship like any that we hopefully see in real life. Most relationships happen within the human species. Yeah. Otherwise, it can get really freaky if you don't lean into that. And I would say, like, if I wasn't able to suspend disbelief on that, I would be far more Team Jacob. But in this series, Edward really is okay. I know this is divisive. I have all the respect for anyone who disagrees with me. My preference for like Edward started literally when I was like 11, and so it's not something it wasn't because I was in some like social media war with anyone or not trying to be picking a side. It was literally just like that's the character that I liked more than Jacob, and I found him cooler, and I just liked his kind of Victorian gentlemanly nature. And honestly, reading the books after the movies, or after watching the first movie, really solidified that. See, Jacob's actually also not human, but he is developmentally far more close to Bella and really acts kind of really childish in a lot of the series. So you do see that. I guess kind of like boys are in general growing up, they tend to maybe lag a couple years behind girls in some senses of maturity. So you can say it's sensible. But boy, when you compare Edward and Jacob, in my opinion, does Edward ever come out looking pretty good. For me, the big thing I had a hard time getting past with Jacob is his inability to take a no, which again, were I Charlie and I heard about that, I would be very upset. As a dad, I'm not a dad, but if I were, yeah. I know some people find it kind of endearing, and there's also the element where, again, having talked about the way Edward is ultimately like a super predator, not, the kind of predator that we really don't want to talk about, but as in like, he's a literal, he's above Bella in the food chain. I know some people view Jacob as being the far more like rational choice, and there's also the part where he stuck by her and was a good friend when Edward ditched Bella, which I will say is maybe the great sin of Edward. And yeah, that was hard to see, but in my opinion, his reasonings for it are very justified, and I think it even lends more towards his Victorian gentlemanliness, this idea that if you love someone, you let them go if you aren't good for them. But Jacob comes out, funny enough, even though he's more like a proper high school sweetheart character in the sense of his age and development. In my opinion, he comes out being far more, I can't use any other word than creepy, For me, the one that really did it was when he planted a kiss on Bella that she didn't want, and then she tried to like push him away, and he kept holding her in this kiss. I really think if you sit with that, there's very little excuse for that. And then you contrast that to Edward, who, for most of the series, or like the pre, yeah, I said no. I said there might be spoilers, so I'll just say it. The pre, obviously, Bella becoming a vampire part of the series. Edward is very restrained. There's construction work going on outside. I really hope you guys can't hear that. Of course, that has to start now. He's quite restrained, and he has that Victorian gentlemanly kind of hesitation to engage in physicality, which would be very in line with his culture and the way he was brought up. And you also see that with the way that Edward involves Charlie in, not in the relationship, but in kind of like, he keeps Charlie a little tuned in the beginning, and is very gentlemanly like that. Even though Charlie might be my favorite character. Also, I know, not like a controversial or rare opinion, but I really do love Charlie. That's probably a topic for a whole other video. But even though Charlie puts up quite a tough front and is fairly judgmental of Edward, Edward never, ever, like, gives that back or is disrespectful, which to me wins big points with Edward. But yeah, you contrast Jacob with Edward's restraint and the way he is, and then I'm coming back to Edward being better again. So even though he's a 100-year-old vampire bloodsucker, but obviously on the vampire form of like a vegetarian diet, he really is, in the book's context, not dangerous, as crazy as that is, and he's far more, in my view, kind to Bella and considerate. I like the Jacob of when Edward is gone and when he's her friend. I think you can excuse a lot of his advances and his kind of unrequited love at that point, because again, they are so young, and he doesn't quite, like, it's not like there's been as many rejections at that point, so it's not like he's just not taking no for no. He's trying to, I guess, I don't know a better word than like shoot his shot. But even still, I find, as someone who grew up with a lot of girl friends, like maybe most of my best friends growing up were girls, I found it really annoying around the time that especially in my experience growing up, a lot of the girls started maturing quicker, meaning, you know, hitting puberty and then like having just very different experiences younger. And I had a really good girlfriend when I was a tween, like I had quite a few. And for me, I felt really behind in that, and like I kind of was not ready for that at all. Like I was still such a boy, and like a young boy, and I really regretted or disliked this feeling that all of a sudden there was all these over and undertones put on friendships with the opposite sex, and I really just wanted to have like my friends. I remember my one friend, Chelsea, I wanted to have a sleepover with her, and she wanted to too. And again, like seriously, like it was not in my mind, she's my friend. I really wanted to like hang out, talk, laugh. And to me, it was the most normal thing in the world to ask her mother if we could do that. And I remember, she was kind, but I just remember this tone that came in that really made me, it was like this like realization moment that all of a sudden I have to treat my girlfriends differently. And again, these are two girlfriends. And that I wouldn't be able to just be like kind of relaxed and free around them, even though my brain wasn't there, and I just wanted to hang out with my friend. So all that to say, I really dislike that part of what Jacob did too, where they had such a good friendship and he was so supportive, and yet he couldn't bring himself to be happy with that. And I feel like after the first couple of rejections, when it became kind of obvious that Bella wasn't feeling it, if he could have just let the friendship be and enjoyed the friendship, that would have been really nice. Obviously, that would change a lot of the book. Maybe it doesn't work for a story, but for as far as like thinking about this as a real thing, I really feel like he kind of, again, strong wording. Please, Jacob fans, don't hate me. But he kind of like ruined the friendship by making it something that had to be a pre-relationship phase, or else he felt completely scorned. And this isn't even going into, by the way, the fact that he, if I recall, he threatened. at one point, or he like implies that if he can't have Bella, he'll just run off into the woods and die. If this was a real thing and one of my friends, she told me that some guy was doing that, I would be very concerned, and I wouldn't be a huge fan of him. That is a form of manipulation. So yeah, the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, yeah, to me, I kind of really struggle with how people are Team Edward. I get it when like we were all kids. I know like a lot of the... Anyways, because I've already stated how when I was a kid I perceived things very differently, and like you kind of don't really get over and undertones as much. I could see some people being Team Jacob in that context. I do struggle with like the later Jacob and how anyone would pick him over Edward. I say that respectfully. Especially, man, do I even get into Renesmee? That whole thing is whack. Maybe I'll save that for another video, but the way that he's kind of just like the thing that gets him to no longer be interested in Bella is his switching interest to Bella's infant daughter. Like, do I really? Man. Yeah, I don't know. I'll save that for another one. But yeah, so this is all stuff that like as an adult is far more, not even, I think complex is the wrong word because it doesn't strike me as complex, but just far more, that's what I was talking about when sometimes you just have to cringe at the book series, but in a way of like, you know, just like, ooh, okay, I'll let that go and just keep reading it. Not cringing like Twilight is cringy, just in how if you really lay it out and you don't factor in as much the supernatural context, if you kind of forget that, or like it's easy to forget that because ultimately they are like a bunch of young adults / kids, that it can get pretty creepy. But yeah, that's the most of it. I think that's the most like Wince-Worthy stuff, is just the power imbalance stuff and the way the romance can sometimes veer into kind of like Bella just being the recipient of things, or like, yeah, like things are happening to her, and sometimes it feels like people don't consider her enough. And when you frame it and when you remember that when this all starts, Bella is a minor, and she's a minor who, again, it seems has had like more of a slow life, or like, I don't know how you put it, you know, she has more like world experience to gain and stuff. When you remember that and frame it in that, it can really seem kind of a lot to read about all this happening to her. But I really like the series, and I really actually like, the reason the first movie hooked me when I was a boy, amongst other things, I love the setting. I like the rainy gray. Obviously it's very like foreshadowing, and it's a setting that works for the tone of the story. But I really like the fantastical realism, is that what that's called? Where I'm Canadian, so it's not like you even have to be just American. But it felt like relatable, and like something you can imagine going on in your hometown, and that real but not real esoteric underworld going alongside the real world is something that's always interested me. And I also really liked, like, I remember getting goosebumps when Edward blocks the car from hitting her. To me, that was like, okay, this is cool, this is great. I liked the idea of I don't know, it might sound funny, but I felt like I could picture myself in both Edward and Bella. I liked the idea of being like protective and strong and being mysterious, and, you know, imagining being in Edward's shoes. And I also liked imagining being, I guess, like swept away and like guarded and cared about so much by someone who's so important. This is maybe a little vulnerable, but as a boy, I had a crush on Hannah Montana, Miley Cyrus. Really, Miley Cyrus. I don't know why I called her Hannah Montana. It's because it came from watching the show Hannah Montana. And I used to have dreams that she would like show up at my school and come and like just ask for me, and everyone would be like, "It's Miley Cyrus," and she'd be like, "Yeah, I'm here to date Drake, I guess." And that kind of idea, like someone super powerful, important, wealthy, and I guess like in one sense that they separate, because obviously Miley Cyrus cannot stop a car with her bare hands, but strong in the sense of like resources and all that. Kind of like popping into your normal dreary life and caring about you and making it interesting and being led into a world that's so different, and but being like welcomed into it. I love the whole Cullen family. I think it's really cool how they welcome Bella. Um, yeah, so man, that was a lot. I hope that that wasn't too rambly, but I just wanted to talk about Twilight and what I like about it. Maybe I should wrap it up here. We got to like 20 minutes. Uh, yeah, but that's a little bit of what's funny about Twilight and also what I like about Twilight. And hopefully that can serve as a basis for me to talk about it more in the future. And I just wanted to, it's ho 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 season and it's getting on really fast. It's going to be Halloween in roughly 2 weeks, 2 weeks in a day. I can't believe it. It always goes too fast now. I do miss being a kid when it felt like a week was like a year compared to now, but it's what it is. And yeah, I just wanted to talk more about Twilight before it gets too far away from me. And I hope to talk more about it before Halloween comes. And I also hope to get more into Midnight Sun. But yeah, today, for instance, is just midterm study, and my brain is so tired of it. So this is a fun break to talk to you guys. And again, thank you so much for the response and for subscribing, those who did. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. And I hope you're having a wonderful Halloween season. And yeah, have a good one.